as amazingly 50th episode, I thought I would do something just a little bit different, for a change, basically. So we are just going to go for a little bit of a wander around with Mr. Halls here, and I'm just going to chat about my thoughts on the game as a whole, and kind of now I've probably spent close to 50 hours within the game, although my episodes aren't an hour long. I've played some hours off camera, just collecting things and doing stuff like that. So I'm probably closer to 50 hours than it would possibly appear. So, if you haven't guessed by now, I like this game rather a lot. It's, I kind of feel like it's one of those once in a lifetime kind of games that will be looked back upon in many, many years' time as something very special. I come into the Zelda series with very little experience. I have played Wind Waker, although not yet completed it, but that is something that's going to be coming. And but apart from that, completely sight unseen really in Zelda. So while I'm sure some of the references to past and previous games might be slightly, might be missed on me, I still think that this is an amazing game as a whole. So what kind of makes it so special? Well, probably number one, the open world nature of it. Now other Zelda games have been pretty open world. Wind Waker, an example of that. I'm sure there's been others. But what I think makes this game stand out in the series, and potentially compared to the other open world games, is the exploration side of things. The go anywhere nature of it. Link's ability to climb and paraglide and all these sorts of things just allow you to just approach the world kind of without fear of getting stuck anywhere or seeing a mountain and then being like, oh, I can't get up there. And it gives you that freedom within the game to just be able to just explore. That freedom of exploration I've always enjoyed. Exploring in video games is one of my favourite things, discovering these areas and going off the kind of beaten path, and like The Legend of Zelda just hits all the right notes for me, in that we have all these different regions within the game. Here we're in Akala, and there's these kind of hills and kind of smaller mountains. You obviously have the Gorons over at Death Mountain, the very rocky kind of hot area. Zora's Domain has all those beautiful waterfalls, and other regions I've not even been to. The plains of kind of Hyrule Field. Here we have a fellow Goron traveller just approaching here. Hello, sir. Is it lunchtime yet? Well, not quite yet, but I hope you have a good lunch. area is gonna, what it's gonna be about, and it's really exciting to think that and to have that in an open world game. If I look at other open world games, The Witcher 3 and Skyrim come to mind, and although they have kind of different regions within them, they're all fairly similar. Witcher, you have kind of like the main sort of Velen, is it? Yeah, it's been a while since I played The Witcher. You have sort of Velen, and you also have like Skellige, and obviously in the DLC you have Toussaint, and they kind of have, they're distinct, but they're not vastly different, and certainly the verticality of Zelda is vastly superior. And you have Skyrim, which, although obviously is kind of a fairly small map when you compare it to Zelda, and that has some different regions, different climate, but it's not really that different. And so what kind of makes Zelda feel special, I think, is it feels, when you say open world, it feels like a world. Sometimes open world games can just kind of feel like an open area, It feels a little bit like something like, oh, hello there. Feels a little bit like Dragon Age Inquisition, but all the regions being open and being able to go where you want, which wasn't something that was in Dragon Age. So I love that, and just the exploration side of things. It kind of drives you along. Now, the other thing I think which Zelda does very differently is the quests and the structure of that. In kind of most RPGs nowadays, there's a lot of kind of hand-holding. It's kind of like, okay, you get a quest, then it tells you exactly where to go for that quest and what you need to do. Now, to a certain extent, Zelda does do that, but sometimes there's kind of like, it feels a little bit more like Morrowind, if you've ever played that, where you would have a quest and the person would give you instructions, and you would be expected to read those instructions and then do whatever it was that they wanted you to do. And Zelda feels a little bit like that, especially with things like shrine quests or just a lot of the side quests as well. It doesn't feel as hand-holdy, which I think kind of helps. And although sometimes can be a little frustrating, overall, I really enjoy that approach. It's kind of a breath of fresh air from, as I said, the kind of hand-holding nature that some games can kind of have, because they worry that people will get frustrated and kind of walk away. And I think the nice thing about Zelda is it's never afraid of what it is. It knows it's a great game, and it knows that you will keep coming back to it for more. So I really like that side of things. And the quests, they don't feel as kind of questy, I guess. There's a weird feeling. I never really feel like I'm on a quest. I just feel kind of like I'm doing the things which kind of come naturally, as it were. Like sometimes you, in kind of RPGs especially, you kind of get a quest and you're like, okay, I'm going to set that quest, then I'm going to do that, wherever that takes me, go there, go there, go there. Whereas all the quests kind of feel like a natural extension of what you're doing. There are some kind of, quests where you go out and it wants you to take pictures of things, or you need to go and get this item or something like that, of course, but most of the time, especially the main quests, they always feel quite natural, I think, and I like that about it. Hello. Hey, you right there, buddy? What's up with you? Nothing there? No? Okay. He just really doesn't like rain, does he? I mean, I don't blame him, he's a Goron. And I think, actually, that brings me on to my details of the game never cease to amaze me. In here, little things like that, it's a rain, and this NPC runs under the shelter to hide from the rain. Amazing. The graphics and graphical style, while technically are not as advanced as something like The Witcher 3 or something like that, Skyrim Special Edition, something like that, it is kind of irrelevant because Nintendo are just these masters of number one, art style, which is so important. The game is stunning, without doubt, and considering the hardware it runs on, which is nowhere near as powerful as modern day consoles like the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, or even nowhere near as powerful as PC, but it still manages to pack in details, especially faraway details as well, and just the kind of almost cartoon-esque style, but with these beautiful animations. It just really is stunning. And again, there's little details and touches which it does very well. There's a hole. Hey there, buddy. Hey. I'm just gonna wander past you, okay? Don't feel bad. I'm not ignoring you. So, yeah, I just love, just little things like you see the wind blowing the leaves there across the screen. It just really makes the world feel real. And it's great. Really cool. Now, there are two things I would be critical of the game for so far. That ball better not charge me down. Ball, I'm not interested in your games today. So, he's just looking at me, wagging his tail. Dude, I don't have any apples for you, sorry. Yeah, there's two things I would be critical of the game for. Number one, the weapon system. Now, I like and dislike it at the same time. That might sound very strange. So, I like it because it forces you to use different weapons and different styles. If weapons didn't break, I'd probably just have like one weapon you'd use, a bit like other Zelda games, and then you wouldn't pick up other cool things. There's some goblins up here which we'll avoid. So I kind of like that aspect of it, that it forces you to do that. But on the downside, one of the things I always like in RPGs and things like that is kind of get attached to weapons, especially something like Skyrim, or even in The Witcher. There's certain weapons you're like, you upgrade them and do things like that, and there's that kind of attachment you have to it, whereas everything in Zelda is, with the exception of, I guess, the Master Sword, is breakable, and even that is to a certain extent. So you have like this, and it can be frustrating because you can go up against a high level enemy and it will break most of your weapons, and you have to kind of build that back up again. But again, it adds a sense of challenge which I think wouldn't be there. At the kind of 50-hour mark that I'm at now, I would just have like exceptionally high level weapons and wouldn't even, what would be the point of the goblins dropping anything, whereas I'm still scrambling for weapons, even now, and will be right until the very last moments of the game, I'm sure. So, the downside being that, as I say, you don't really get attached, and that kind of, it's a weird system which I haven't really seen in many games games where that will happen, but I've not really seen it before in a large RPG. It's interesting. I wonder whether or not it's something that, well, I mean, obviously it's a very much a conscious decision Nintendo made, but I wonder whether, given the feedback they've had, whether it's something they would still implement going forward. As far as I'm aware, most of the other Zelda games, certainly Wind Waker I've played, you just have a sword and then you fight with that. I like having the different weapons which do different things, different styles. They do come with like different perks sometimes and things like that. You know, you have the flame swords, the ice swords, the lightning swords, you know, spears, and you know, big claymores like the one I've got here. So I like the variety and what they do, and you know, having the right weapon for the right enemy is pretty important as well. Okay, so we're a little bit further up the road because I did just get absolutely ambushed just then. As I was saying, I like the fact that you kind of pick and choose the weapons for the different people as you go along. It's pretty cool, I think. On there, my second criticism of the game as a whole, I mean, I guess one would be, I feel bad for criticising it for on a technical level because there are some heavy frame rate dips at certain areas. Certainly when we went to go and get the Master Sword, the area there was really had a lot of slowdown, and other areas as well. As you play the game, you don't notice it so much, but you know, you do kind of feel that Nintendo are absolutely maxing out the Switch and the Wii U currently, which is kind of like, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, if we get, you know, Zelda games as good as this for the next few years, then I'll be happy. I mean, I wouldn't have thought we'll see another one for a good few years, but you know, it worries me that the Switch has just launched and it feels like it's got a game which has already maxed it out a little bit, but we'll see. Sometimes you get that at the beginning of hardware cycles where the machine, they haven't quite unlocked the full potential of it, shall we say, software wise, haven't optimised it, and as a result it isn't quite to the you know, you haven't quite maxed it out, even though it kind of might feel like it with the games which come out. Certainly we saw that with probably Grand Theft Auto 5 and something like that, which came out late in the PlayStation 4 and Xbox 360 cycle, where certainly I was the person who couldn't believe that those machines were still capable of... Sorry, PlayStation 3, wasn't it? Sorry, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 cycle. Couldn't believe that those machines were still capable of running something like that. So, yeah, from a technical point of view, I would like to see it run at least 30 frames per second consistently. I understand 60 is probably pushing it a little bit, but there we go. The details around things like the stables and stuff like that are amazing. Just little things like finding recipes in them as well, chatting to the locals. Brilliant. An interesting thing as well, I think, is for like a AAA game like this, which I don't feel has like an unbelievable number of NPCs. I do find it strange that it's still not voice acted in 2017. I know that the cutscenes are, but I kind of find it strange that the others aren't. I'm guessing that's more of a stylistic approach rather than a say budget constraint or something like that. And from my perspective as somebody who is making ASMR videos, it's actually better because you don't get screaming and shouting. I can still just read the lines, while whispering. So I kind of prefer that. But I can imagine if I was just playing this normally, I would kind of be like, why is this not voice acted here? When games which have got, it's not a technical limitation, if you see what I'm saying. I'm pretty sure it's a stylized choice. And I know in the past Zelda games aren't voice acted, so I understand that, but it's 2017 now. And I think on the whole the voice acting parts which they do have in the game are really good. So yeah, it's kind of a shame sometimes that you don't see more of it. The exception being, I'm still getting used to Princess Zelda's British accent, which is a strange choice, especially if the voice artist is actually American, which is again weird. Why not just get someone who's actually British to do that? But hey, Nintendo quite often don't do things in a way that you would expect. The next thing I kind of want to mention about the game is the RPG style of it. So this is kind of like something which is dawning on me now as I get so many hours into the game. Traditional RPGs, you level up, okay? That's the way it kind of is and has been, always will be, I guess. Ish. You get experience points for things you do, then you can sometimes invest them in different skill trees or different levels. That's the kind of system that RPGs have been based on for many, many years, many decades, and I guess to a certain extent it's worked pretty well. Take something like Skyrim. You have all the different skill trees. It allows you to have different playthroughs and different styles and things like that. Take something like Witcher again, even though you are just one character, you still have kind of different styles, and you unlock skills as you go through the game and do different things. The interesting thing about Zelda is it doesn't have any of that. There is no skills to unlock. There is no levelling up. The only levelling up it has is the hearts and stamina wheels, which you get from doing the shrines. And that's kind of fascinating. I know, obviously, in Zeldas in the past, that's always the way it's been, but I'm looking at this and comparing it to, like, other RPGs. And you would think that would limit the game somewhat, but actually it kind of doesn't. It actually simplifies things and it lets you get on with stuff, I think, rather than having to worry about levelling up and what skills you have, and I can't go to this area because my lockpicking skill isn't high enough or anything like that. It just lets you play, if that makes sense. And I quite like it. Don't get me wrong, I'm a sucker for an RPG. There's actually a chest up there, isn't there? Is there? I can't quite see. I think it is, but I'm gonna miss it. Oh god. Yeah, I'm a sucker for an RPG, without doubt. I love all the levelling and unlocking skills and doing things like that. That sense of progression is fantastic. But yeah, I feel it would just add in complexity to this game that it just doesn't need. The game is, the kind of cool thing about it is you meet harder enemies as you go through the game, but the weapons you pick up are stronger, so it kind of balances out to some extent. But the enemies are still much harder than they are early game, but it kind of evens itself out a little bit, which is nice. The question is, where do I want to go? Probably really want to avoid that Bokoblin camp as well, so we'll stay away from there. Yeah, I really like that way of things. I think it makes it very accessible to people as well. They don't really have to worry about that. You still have that sometimes thought of like, I should probably come back here when I have more hearts or more stamina or better weapons. I still definitely have that with different areas. And then you have that accomplishment when you can go back and complete that area, even though the technical level of your character is exactly the same. Maybe your personal skill level is raised, you've learned a few new tricks. Okay, so just insert another cut because the bokoblin saw me and started chasing me, so I had to run away. Yeah, so I really like that that style that it goes for there. It's something just nice and simple, and I guess as Nintendo do best, it's a throwback to kind of like times when games were simpler. There's not the over complexity, because sometimes that can happen. I'm playing through Horizon as well at the minute, and you get these games where, and it's not really criticism of Horizon, it's more criticism of me, I guess, but where you unlock different skills and then you just forget that you can even do that because you've played 30 hours of the game without that skill. So yeah, I feel like there's that kind of thing, and it's nice that there's nothing, you unlock your powers very quickly in the game, and that's what you have for the rest of the game pretty much, and you just get on with it. I know obviously like in Wind Waker you get some things fairly late and stuff like that, but there's that kind of sense of progression and levelling up which you get still with that, but yeah, I feel like they just kind of turned around and went, okay, there's all the tools, just go out and enjoy this sandbox type world, and if you want to do some of the main quests as you go around, fantastic. And I guess speaking of the main quest as a whole, so far I really love the story. I think it's fantastic. I think the Divine Beasts are amazing. The actual bosses themselves are not really the most imaginative things I've come across ever, but I love the little dungeons that are associated before them, the puzzling and things like that, and the shrines as a whole I think are a really cool addition. Having to solve these puzzles or do these little combat trials in order to level up is a lot of fun. I kind of was reading, some people were complaining about them, they weren't enjoying the shrines. I really find that weird. I always look forward to each one I go into to be like, oh, what's this one going to be about? And sometimes I actually wish they were longer than they are. It's like a bore. Because I just kind of love the puzzling through it and stuff like that. It's fantastic. And obviously sometimes the puzzles are outside the shrine. You get the shrine quests which you have to do, which are a lot of fun. To kind of play around with things, which is pretty cool. And to be honest with you, most of the time, 99% of the time, the game tells you nothing about how to complete it. It lets you work it out. Maybe it gives you a riddle or something, and then you're expected to just work it out from there. And there's been a few where I've been totally stumped, as you guys will know. But I'm totally cool with that. So I really enjoy that side of things and look forward to doing them. I'll probably, maybe not on camera, but I'll probably try to complete all the shrines around, just because I just enjoy them. And I think that's a fantastic sense of achievement. As I said, the dungeons that come with the Divine Beasts are great. I love them. The two that I've done so far being that you move the entire, or part of, or the entire beast to access different areas and things like that. It's a very cool idea. I like that a lot. So far, really good. And I love the semi-survival aspects of the game as well. The cold areas you need to cook food to keep you warm, vice versa for the hot areas, or different food helps you level up and stuff like that. The cooking is one of my favourite parts of the game. I love cooking in any game for some reason, I don't know why, because I don't really enjoy it in real life, but was online, I try to cook everything as much as I can. It's just, I don't know what it is. I mean, I guess I do like food in real life, so probably that's something to do with it. Or the fact that I worked in restaurants for like 5 years might have something to do with it as well, I guess. But yeah, there's just something super cool about the cooking and finding ingredients and going around it. It's not just a case of like, I'll find these things and combine them. It's like combining different things gives you different meals, you do different stuff, and as you get to know it, you appreciate the importance of different things as you go through as well. So I think that's cool, and I know there's a hard mode coming in the game, and I would imagine that cooking will have a much more vital importance for people who are actually going to play through that, which I probably won't, in all honesty. Maybe in a couple of years or something I would, just personally, but I find the game is already a challenge, to be honest. Hey, you're back again. I swear we just saw you. I am making. Oh no, it was somebody else different. But anyway, you have a good day. She must go to the gym. Yeah, if I had another criticism as well of the game, and again it's a small one, but I would say the enemy variety is limited. Now I appreciate that that's somewhat, perhaps, when you're making a game, which is, I don't know how many there's been in the series of Zelda, to just introduce loads of new enemies would be a little bit weird. But again, if you take it against something like modern day RPGs like The Witcher 3, for example, there is obviously a vast variety of enemies in that game. Almost too many perhaps, but yeah, a lot. And whereas in this, so far, most of the time there's a wizard up there, but we'll avoid him for sure. But yeah, there's a dozen or so enemies that you come across, and they're fairly clever. Like, I love the fact that the Hinox, after you hit him in the eye a few times, will cover it up, and the goblins will learn to run around your bombs and things like that. It's pretty cool. We're just going to move over here and ignore this guy as much as possible. So yeah, I love the the enemies themselves, they're good. The bosses are okay. They're the kind of traditional, like, learn the pattern, exploit the pattern, and you can beat the boss side of things, and have different phases usually as well. Kind of your traditional thing. Very, very kind of traditional Japanese style. You see that in Dark Souls a lot, stuff like that. So far, they haven't really given me a huge amount of trouble. The only thing that probably given me any trouble in the game is a Lionel, I guess, which are pretty tough. Probably the toughest thing in the game, I'd say. But it's nice to have that challenge every now and then. And the good thing about Lionels as well is they're optional. So if you are the sort of person who just doesn't enjoy that challenge and just wants to, play the game, and not have to worry about dying 15 times, then you, as far as I'm aware, you don't have to kill any of them if you don't want to. It's a beautiful sunset. Again, this is, when we talk about art style, this is kind of like one of the amazing, just amazing views you get. See the Hyrule Castle in the background. I feel like so far Zelda's been like a really good book where I know I'm about halfway through ish. Technically completion I'm probably about 10%, but in terms of story I know I'm about halfway through and I'm loving every second of it, but it also fills me with sadness that at some point I'm going to finish the game. And there is story DLC coming out at the end of the year, but That's just the way it is, I guess. But you have to enjoy the journey, you know. And so far, I really have enjoyed it so much. I would 100% recommend anybody to pick this game up. I mean, probably most people who watch this playthrough. I mean, the problem, of course, is that if you don't own a Wii U or a Nintendo Switch, it suddenly becomes very expensive to get the game. You know, not only do you have to pay for the game itself, but you also have to buy the console to play the game on if you don't own that. And certainly in terms of the Switch, it's fairly expensive. And in terms of the Wii U, it's probably cheaper now, but still really expensive for a console that old. Like, you know, you can pick up Xbox 360s for less than £100 nowadays, but I still think a Wii U is like £200+ to pick up. So I don't know. There's probably a lot more used ones since the Switch came out, but you know, I would recommend that even if you are like, well, I don't really want a Switch, but I like these Zelda games. I think the Wii U version has a little bit more frame rate issues than the Switch, but I think it pretty much looks the same otherwise, and from people who've played it have said they've still really enjoyed it, so I would still you know, say that if you can't afford a Switch, it's worth playing. You get a lot of time out of this game. You know, it's not something where you're going to be like, okay, there's 10 hours of the story, that was amazing, but you know, what now? You know, there's still a lot to do within the game itself. I think we definitely don't want to go to Zora's Domain because there's too many of those octo things in the river which are going to pelt me with rocks. But I also believe that there is a camp down here of goblins. And I mean, this isn't like a final review or anything of the game because, as I said, I'm nowhere near fully completing it. I'm just, you know, at episode 50 I thought I would just kind of ramble my thoughts as we take a relaxing stroll around. Hey, Ball, what's up? That's a good choice you made, Ball. A good choice. Yeah, so it's pretty cool, and I like the Sheikah Tower thing is kind of cool. It's incredibly. It's a rip-off of Far Cry, like the radio towers and things like that. Unashamedly so, I'd say. You know, or something like Assassin's Creed. Those games have been doing that for a while, and the funniest thing I think is that people criticise those games so much, like, oh, Ubisoft and their radio towers, and then Nintendo have the Sheikah Towers, and they just get a complete pass on it, and they're like, oh, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I've never had a problem with the radio towers or the eagle points in Assassin's Creed. I've always enjoyed them. I feel that's very cheap shots to aim at those games. And so I don't have a problem at all with the Sheikah Towers in this game at all. In fact, I'd like to have something like that which gives you a point to aim for, you know, where you can turn around and go, okay, I'm going to go there, that thing there, that will unlock the area, then I can have a look on my map at interesting points and then still go to that as well. So, you know, that to me adds some sort of linearity to what is can sometimes be an overwhelmingly open game of like, where do I go next? These vague points on the map that my quest is pointing to are not really that helpful, I guess. So yeah, it's a magnificent game. Certainly one of the best games I've ever played so far. I don't know where it would rank. I mean, if I was going to be really harsh, compare it to something like The Witcher 3, which is potentially my all-time favourite game, I would say I still prefer The Witcher 3, and the reason being that the story is just very much stronger in a way. Obviously, you don't get the open world exploration as much as you do in Zelda, but there's just real. I know who you are, and I'm not even going to talk to you. There's just not even, the characters of The Witcher and stuff like that. It's a very, very different game, and it's unfair almost to compare the two. But if I think The Witcher 3 set a bar for like what video games can be, I think Zelda's gone in a very different direction, and also set like a bar of what in a different area of what video games can be. So they both do what they do very, very well. If one day we can get something which combines what they both do, then that will probably be a very special game. And I think the plaudits and the reviews scores that the game's been getting have been justified. I think it's really like exceptional. It's going to be crazy to think that a game as good as Horizon might not even be in the top 4 games of the year. Just the strength of video games coming out this year is mental, especially compared to last year, because I really don't feel like 2016 was that memorable a year for video games. We had some good games come out. I guess everyone's going to point towards like Overwatch and stuff like that, but that was never my cup of tea. But 2017 is, people forget we've still got Red Dead Redemption 2 coming out at the end of the year, as well as many other things. Shadow of Mordor 2. There's lots of things coming which look like they're going to be special. Are any of them going to beat Zelda to Game of the Year? I kind of doubt it. But I guess we'll see. And I think as we approach the 45-minute mark here, well, anyway, of me recording, obviously I would have cut some things out, so it'll be slightly less. I think we'll finish up this one day here, and I'll just say thank you for joining me so far on this journey through the game. It's been amazing so far. The series has just exploded. Really, the views that it gets on my channel are just huge compared to other things, and the support and the comments and things like that are fantastic as well. And I can see that obviously so many other people really, really love this game as well, which is brilliant. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me on this little kind of ramble and wonder. Hey everyone, so I just got ambushed once again, and so just to say, I don't know how much of my finishing up of this episode is, but just to say thank you once again for your support on the series. I'm loving it. We're obviously still gonna play through. I don't know how many episodes the entire series is gonna have. I don't know. There's a mystery of really. I don't know. I'm imagining it's going to be over 100, which would be pretty big. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. But thank you so much for joining me. As always, it's my pleasure, and I'll see you in the next episode where we'll actually be back. So I'm actually recording this after a few episodes, so we'll jump back in and I guess see where we go from there. But thanks a lot, and I'll see you soon.